Top of the morning, security gang, and welcome back to the CyberHub Podcast. It's great to be with all y'all this Tuesday morning, November 25th, 2025. A few days away from Thanksgiving. I hope everyone is ready for a little bit of turkey in your life. Let's throw some turkeys on the screen today. Um, so, um, Exciting days ahead, obviously, with Thanksgiving. It's one of my favorite holidays. But I want to start off today's show with a special thank you. Those who don't know, this show's been happening for about 8 years. And for those who don't know, my name is James Azar. I'm the host. I'm also a chief information security officer by trade. And I've interviewed a lot of different great folks on the show. But one who really kind of always stands out to me, who's a great friend, someone who just I can always call on and know they'll always be there, is my good friend Patrick Benoit. And Patrick was those know I love bourbon and whiskey. Well, he sent me this amazing double barrel Amador. Thank you, Patrick. I can't wait to try this. I am going to enjoy it so much. So thank you, Patrick, for doing that. Folks, we're not going to have a shot of bourbon on a Tuesday morning because, yeah, well, it's 5 o'clock somewhere. This, yours truly, is a practitioner, and I don't drink in the morning. I only drink at the end of the day. So, with that being said, join me for my double espresso and my festive. Again, my wife, so thoughtful, so amazing. She got me this for my birthday last week. So, beautiful, festive, double-sided glass. My toddler broke. She got me two. My toddler broke one by accident. I gotta watch this one even more. Coffee cup, cheers, y'all. All right, we've got a packed show. We'll start off with Harvard University disclosing over the weekend that their alumni data was breached. Harvard disclosing that the alumni affairs and development systems were compromised, exposing personal information for students, alumni, donors, staff, and faculty. Initial access stemmed from a voice phishing operation, according to the report from Harvard. Expect targeted phishing of high net worth donors and even partners. If you're a Harvard alumni or part of that group, look for invoice and even wire fraud lures tied to Harvard events as part of the way to try to capitalize on the data they were able to steal from there. And again, this isn't the first time we've seen this. This happened at Penn, and now we're seeing it happen to Harvard. So, universities, your alumni are a target for threat actors, and if you don't see that, you have a serious you're seriously blind to that. You've got to protect that information with all of your might. I mean, and Harvard, this is a hit on your reputation for a university that is supposed to be an alumni Ivy League school. That's not bad. And by the way, Princeton was also a victim of it. We talked about it last week on the show as well. We'll move to Mazda confirming being a target of the Oracle EBS CLOP campaign, but they say no data leaked or there was any sort of operational impact. Now, Mazda did confirm this, saying the hacking wave, the CLOP listed Mazda and Mazda USA, but says the investigation showed that there was no operational impact or any sort of data leakage. So why would they list you, Mazda? Now, I will say, Mazda has a new CISO, good friend of mine, Ray Griffith. I didn't reach out to Ray. Don't want to put him in that position. But I'll tell you this. If they're listing you, they've obviously gotten something. So it may not be a data leak. They may have taken something that has zero worth to Mazda, but nonetheless, that they've still been able to take it and list it. And again, a lot of times threat actors exaggerate. I love how some people will always reach out to me after the show and go, but they said they got it. And I go, oh, you mean the people who steal for a living don't lie? Huh. That's an interesting set of kind of like personal beliefs, but that's not the case here. They absolutely did lie, maybe potentially because Mazda has a fiduciary duty to its stakeholders and the SEC, they're a publicly traded company, to report this correctly. Otherwise, they face the long arm of the SEC and potentially even more federal agencies for misleading investors. So I don't think Mazda's the one lying here. Just gonna put that out there. Okay, we'll move to Situs exposing client data with a massive ripple to banks like Citi, Morgan Stanley, and even JP Morgan Chase. Citus AMC is confirming a breach, reporting indicating that sensitive client docs tied to major banks may be in scope. Um, JP Morgan, Citi, and Morgan Stanley were all asked for comment. They have yet to reply to the news, but this is all mortgage information, folks. And this is the scariest type of information to leak out, because mortgage fraud is on the rise with a stagnant housing market. Any sort of kind of like deviation from cybercrime to the mortgage market could have a snowball effect on the entire economy. You're looking at high value financial documents, from contracts to loan files. This should enable any sort of fraud or insider style targeting at scale at all these banks, meaning they now have to go back. And this isn't a technology issue now, it's a workflow issue, right? They're going to have to go back and look at the workflows around these compromised documents and adjust the workflow across the entire organization, from validation to verification to issuance, the whole nine. Because ideally, they're going to try to capitalize on this data at some point, and they could do it by taking out a line of credit on a home and eating away at people's equity, which is significant. That's a loss of wealth. That's a loss of wealth to the American middle class with the people they impact. And for most American middle class, their wealth revolves around the equity in their home and their 401k and retirement savings account. So you really have to let that sink in to understand the magnitude of an attack like this one. So you want to enforce least privileged data pools. Again, a lot of the stuff here, your supply chain is really becoming a pain in your back end, because all these various suppliers, they're on target, and when they put your logo on their website, you have some serious issues because they know you're there. They can't get to JP Morgan Chase, but they can get to them through Citus AMC, and that's significant. All right. So take that for face value there as well. We'll continue. We've got a lot more stories today. So in the Russia-Ukraine war, cyber warfare is still front and center. So Russia is occupying parts of Ukraine, for those who don't know, the Donetsk region, some of the Crimea region, and so forth, in part of the attack. And what they've done since is they've actually entered Russian post to operate in those occupied areas of Ukraine. And that Russian post outpost in the Donetsk and Luhansk area have now been taken offline through a cyber attack. Again, this is primarily targeting the legitimacy of Russia in those occupied areas of the Ukraine. Again, hopefully the bloodshed there will end at some point. But the statement came from the Ukrainian Cyber Alliance, saying they carried out the attack, claiming more than 1,000 workstations and over 100 VMs with several dozen terabytes of data were all destroyed. And again, this was wiper malware. They were in there to destroy, not kind of do a denial of service attack or any sort of ransomware attack. They went right after it, essentially wiping all the data from there. So that's also going to be significant for us to kind of be watching through. Now, the big news yesterday was Sheh Hulud 1.0 was significant. It impacted 187 NPM libraries. This one hitting over 500, and in some reports, even 2,500. Researchers spotting hundreds of poison packages impersonating names tied to Zapier, ENS domains, PostHawk, Postman, and so much more. Seeded in NPM to leak secrets to GitHub. The goal is to lift tokens and keys from developer environments and build a very, very successful supply chain style of attack. They're going after your dev laptops. From there, they go after your repos. Then they look after your CL runners. And then from there, they look at your crowd credentials, and the attacks cascade from there. They're looking at log files and version pinning and private registry as well. They're quarantining low reputation publishers in your CI. You should rotate any tokens on any machines that installed any of those affected packages. That's also really, really significant there. And again, you look at the report, Wiz, Aikido, Helix Guard, Koi, Socket, Step Security, all kind of releasing a whole bunch of information. I was invited to 3 different webinars yesterday, attended one partially in the time I had coming around this specific type of attack. The attack is self-replicating, so it continues to expand and expand and expand. It doesn't stop. It's going to take a few days for GitHub and NPM to actually clean the mess up. So you want to make sure you're tracking these style of attacks within your environment. The WordPress proof of concept dropped for W3 total cache. This is CVE 2025 90501. This is a public exploit that's now existing for a critical unauthenticated command injection bug in W3 total cache. This is one of WordPress's most installed plugins, raising mass exploitation risk. Again, this could lead to easy site takeover, even skimmers being put in on your website. If it's e-commerce, some SEO poisoning, and even malware distribution through that. You should patch or disable your W3 total cache immediately. You should add WAF rules for known payloads, and you should hunt weblogs for suspicious patterns or unexpected admin actions within your WordPress environment. And we'll move to one of the more popular messaging apps on the planet, WhatsApp. So WhatsApp, we've got two different stories around WhatsApp, so buckle up. One, WhatsApp is being used as a delivery channel for malware, with a campaign surge being reported now, showing threat actors are leveraging WhatsApp links and social routes, especially in Brazil, to push banking Trojans to harvest divide logs and contacts. This could impact your bring your own devices and contractor devices, becoming an ingress point, session theft, and even overlay malware risk for financial users, especially for those in South America specifically. This type of attack is Brazil. We've seen a lot of these attacks always originate from Brazil, and then they expand from Brazil as well. So that one is significant. Continuing with WhatsApp, where researchers compiled a list of 3.5 billion accounts through scraping. Essentially, researchers showing how WhatsApp's contact discovery endpoints could be abused at scale to enumerate up to 3.5 billion accounts and collect metadata due to weak rate limiting. Meta's tightening controls. Meta tightened those controls back in October of last year. However, the large scale doxing list for targeted phishing and harassment could have already been exfiltrated by some threat actors, including some staff directories if you're using it for business, which in some parts of the world they do. WhatsApp is significantly being used for business in many, many parts of the world, not specifically in the US, but you go anywhere overseas and that's the case. So you want to make sure you tighten up your internal controls around WhatsApp. So let's talk about Charming Kitten and APT-35. They are the part of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps. A major leak of the Charming Kitten documentation details a militarized organizational structure, credential harvest pipelines, including Exchange and Gmail, and even long-term targeting across the Middle East and Asia. They have clear playbooks, including copycat attempts and even faster onboarding of some of their junior operators. So a lot of this kind of shows their methods of operation. This is a significant blow to the group because they're really going to have to rethink the way they operate. Essentially, all of this kind of exposed their modus operandi of them targeting energy firms in Turkey, Lebanon, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, South Korea, and even within Iran itself. Again, they're looking at exchange exploitation, credential harvesting pipelines. You're looking at kind of all of how they run this, and again, all of this kind of leaking out to the public now. So defenders know what to do. You should enable AMSI plus PowerShell transcription. You should block consumer C2 apps like Telegram and Discord on corporate host. You should have UBA for unusual successful OAuth grants and even mailbox searches. All of that should make help build resiliency against APT-35 there. All right. In the UK, British MPs want to make software vendors liable to protect the economic security of the United Kingdom. Now, this is coming after Jaguar Land Rover. So you can imagine Jaguar Land Rover, $1.5 billion bailout, £1.5 billion bailout, I'm sorry, for Jaguar Land Rover in the UK. You have to pay back within 5 years. And again, this was to keep the auto industry from there, but an influential committee saying a lack of software vendors' liability is a national or economic security risk. They're urging measures to hold suppliers responsible for insecure products. Contracting and procurement may shift fast, and expect secure by default SBOM and even vulnerability response SLAs to be mandatory in the UK as you continue to do business there. You want to pre-bake security warranty language, SBOM delivery and coordinated disclosure timelines, and patch SLAs into vendor frameworks going forward. All of that is going to come into play there as well. So again, this report is following a series of cyber incidents in the UK where now they're trying to pass the buck. Now, will this work? Potentially. Is it really going to lead to more security? Doubtful. Doubtful. Just saying that, putting that out there, really, really doubtful that's going to happen. All right. That's it for our show today. We'll be back tomorrow, 9 a.m. Eastern, with all the latest. We'll have no show on Thursday. It's Thanksgiving. Friday, we'll have our regular weekly email summary of all the news. And Saturday, our 3-part series article around the subscription model, killing the CISO budget. The first one will be released this Saturday, so you can go subscribe at cyberhubpodcast.com. Thank you all for tuning in this morning. Make sure to subscribe, share, follow, and like. Until then, have a great rest of your day. And most importantly, y'all, happy Thanksgiving and stay cyber safe.
We love feedback, so make sure to connect with us on social media and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast listening platform.